Okay, all right. So now I am going to introduce our Power Talk speaker of the day, which is the wonderful Edward Sunwolf. And after Ed gives his Power Talk, we will hear from the main speaker of the day, who is our beloved Tony Hamilton. So go ahead, Ed.
Thank you. Good morning all. My today's Power Talk is about John Horse, aka John Caballo, John Calloway, John Gopher. He was born in 1812 and his presumed death is around 1882. John was one of many black American Indians, but he was also a Seminole warrior who fought in several Seminole wars. He lived in northern Central Florida, an Oconee territory, Indian territory, where he learned hunting, fishing, and tracking. He later became a bow marksman, and he was skilled in hand-to-hand combat. John Horse gained his initial fame when he joined up with a Miccosukee chief by the name of Coacoche, which is Wildcat. Him and Wildcat did a lot of daring attacks on various U.S. forts all throughout Florida and the eastern Alabama area. He executed one particular daring attack from a fort that the U.S. bragged was impenetrable, unbreachable, and he proved otherwise. Him and Wildcat led many remnants of shattered Seminole bands, including members of the Miccosukee, Yamasee, Seminole, Appalachee, Tallahassee. They led all those bands to freedom, escaping from various different forts. He rose to prominence in the Second Seminole War, where he served as translator under Osceola, the legendary Chief Osceola, who later fell into American military hands. Later in the Battle of Lake Okeechobee, after they had captured Osceola, John Horse and Wildcat led escaping Seminoles out of one of the forts there, and they held off the legendary General Zachary Taylor, who was known for catching Indians. That was his specialty. They successfully fled, crossing Lake Okeechobee and taking refuge in the Everglades. And there they fought General Jessup of the Loxahatchee River. And they fought successfully, but still had to end up fleeing because more infantry were on their way. They later offered the promise of peace and a new life west of the Mississippi, away from Indian territory. John Horse finally agreed to surrender and to have some kind of peace in his life. And then in 1840, he was asked to approach his buddy Wildcat to have him surrender as well, and trying to draw a truce between the Seminoles and the U.S. And Wildcat utterly refused. And he later retired back into the Indian territory. Later in his 70s, John Horse had another calling in his 70s, where he had to go down to Mexico with the Mexican government. The Mexican government had previously promised land to Seminole settlers that had fled there from the U.S. And then they were attacked by local farmers and other dignitaries and set up a land grab. So John Horse went down there to reaffirm with the Mexican government down in Mexico City that those lands actually belonged to the Seminoles. It was agreed upon. It was another treaty. And thanks to John Horse, that treaty was actually enforced, unlike many of the treaties here in the United States. And that was in approximately 1882. He was never heard from after that trip. It was believed that he had died somewhere along the way, or as a retaliation for the reaffirmation of that land. And right now, still today, there are Black Seminoles known as Muskogos that still reside in Coahuila, Mexico today. Now, I admire John Horse because of his commitment to the Seminole people and to the culture, and how he did not allow, as a Black mixed Indian, he did not allow the racism of that time to victimize him, to hold him down, to play small, as we say. Being a Black Indian, he risked being made a slave to the Europeans and to the Southern whites. Every time he left the Indian territory, his life was at risk. His family was at risk. But he did his job anyway. I mean, he lived in the Indian territory, and he lived freely. He lived under the guise as a slave, as many Black Indians did, because in that time, if you had one drop of Black blood, you were considered Black, which that's historical, but not true. But he served his people anyway, and he lived authentically and unapologetically. And he followed his warrior heart. He courageously served using all his skills, expecting no recognition. I mean, went down to recorded history, but a history that was never really taught. John Horse inspired me to be proud to be a mixed Black Indian, and I know when people look at me, all they see is a Black person, but I'm so much more than that. And I know I'm so much more than that. There's nothing simple about me or the ancestors that I've come from. Learning about John Horse helped me to face my fears and my challenges of living in a two-race society, Black or white. Growing up in the city, I would simply try to ignore or play around questions from friends and other people that I know about my family. How do some of us look white? How some of us look Black? How some of us look mixed? And when people would ask me, do you have your Indian card, your government card? Or do you pay taxes? Or what is your blood quantum? Like I'm some kind of pedigree dog or something. I often struggle to hide my anger and my stress that it often caused me, that I felt that it caused me. And I find myself being very self-conscious about my skin color, not having straight hair, or not looking like my mom and her people as well. So because of John Horse, I realized I had to be me and embrace all of me, Black, Indian, and other. I had to learn to live authentically and unapologetically. I learned to live and love me and my Indian culture, regardless of what others say. I now dance in the sacred circle. I now sing and drum in honor and veneration to my American Indian ancestors. And now I am learning African ancestral veneration as I learn to grow and expand my knowledge of myself and embrace more of who I am and where I come from. It has been an interesting journey. And John Horse was the one that really ignited me to move forward in the Indian culture. Because even my mom, who faced lots of stress, lots of challenges, she often suggested that I did not participate. And I'm like, how can you not participate? This is your culture. How would grandma feel? But she didn't have a good connection with grandma, because grandma had her issues about light and dark skin color. She was known to have the lighter skinned kids clean the house, and the darker skinned kids got candy and baked cakes and stuff like that. So that's all a part of that racial trauma of this country. And I really appreciate the learning of John Horse as I picked up over the years from different chiefs, different family members, because it was really, really hard to really find anything on him. And until, the internet come, now you get a little bit of everything everywhere. So that, which was kind of good on one hand. And I'm just appreciative for his warrior heart, his truth, and his authenticity, and his commitment to the culture. And that's pretty much my presentation. Oh, and my PS is rather, as far as race goes. P.S. I was born a light-skinned kid with copper red hair. Go figure. That's my presentation. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much, Ed. That was lovely, lovely, lovely. Good morning, everyone. So, first this morning, I really want to take a moment and acknowledge the Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Reverend Michelle, the board, the CSL family. I want to acknowledge CSL for recognizing and celebrating Black History year-round, not just during Black History Month, and also for the courage, for your love and openness and commitment to healing. I also want to offer my compassion and love to those of us that have been triggered by this discussion on race and on history, to those that have been frustrated or annoyed or don't see the need or why Reverend Michelle is doing this, and yet they have remained in community and remained in conversation. So I want to honor and acknowledge you also. I also want to really honor and acknowledge those of us who have participated in Reverend Michelle's programs for healing the divide. I acknowledge you for your courage, for your humanity, and for your willingness to possibly learn something new and be in a very difficult and uncomfortable conversation. I really, really appreciate and understand, and I thank you for it. You know, allow me to be clear. My talk this morning, I'm not speaking for Black America. I'm not speaking for people of African descent anywhere in the diaspora or in Africa. As a matter of fact, I can guarantee you that you will find many different perspectives amongst people of color based on their experience, their beliefs, and the extent to which they have internalized racism. I dare say it's a real conundrum and an enigma of the highest order, and I don't pretend to have the answer for it. So my talk is based on my experience. So our science of mind teaching teaches us that there's one divine creative intelligence, one substance, one essence, one energy. It's infinite and unlimited, and it creates, and it expresses as, in, and through all of life uniquely and individually. It expresses through all of creation. There is no separation. There's only one. There is, however, the appearance of separation for those of us that do not understand the presence within and in back of all form and all creation. But because we're one, what impacts one, whether it's evidence or not, impacts all of us to some degree or another. Spirit animates form. It animates the body. And when spirit releases the body, the spirit transitions. But life is not dependent upon form. Form is a vehicle that spirit expresses through. Spirit, when released from the body, returns to the oneness. So while science of mind is not the same as traditional African cosmology, there are important similarities. A belief in the creator as present within all of life, and the interconnectedness of all of life, and therefore the inherent reciprocity within community. the belief in the ongoing life of those who have transitioned, what we call our ancestors. People of African descent in America are the most humane, loving, kind, forgiving, and resilient people. Despite the horrific experience of American chattel slavery and continued institutionalized racism, we have built lives, built much of this nation without getting credit for it or any remuneration, and become a huge contributing part of society as best we can. It is a work in progress. Our theme for the month is connection to family, and I'm going to speak about my experience of my family, my perspective. It's my belief that due to the destructive elements of slavery and also the memory of our cultures, who we were before we were brought here, the memory of that, whether it was a conscious memory or in our DNA, family became sacred to African Americans, and mine was such a family. So in slavery, our families were torn apart brutally. And what I believe came out of that was this deep connection to family. And so as a child, I lived in one of those communities that you've heard about, where I could, if I was outside playing and I got hungry or I needed to use the bathroom, if I was in front of Mrs. Tyndall's house, I just knocked on the door and told Mrs. Tyndall I want to use the bathroom or I was hungry. And I was able to do that. And there was no thought of, oh, I have to go home. My aunts and uncles and great aunts and uncles were an integral part of my life. My cousins were my friends. We did all kinds of stuff together. My relatives were magical. They were fun. They were loving. They were caring people who were there for us. I was really protected as much as possible, but still, make no mistake, there were issues. I was almost 30 years old before I learned that many of my elders lived through segregation. And I asked why they never told us. They didn't talk about it. They had the wisdom not to focus on that or to give energy to it. They didn't want it to negatively influence us. Yet they navigated life managing the emotional, mental, psychic wounds and character distortions that were a result of slavery. Even with that, they were doctors, lawyers, judges, chefs, carpenters, realtors, and ministers. I had a lot of ministers in my family. They were always around. They would pop in with food, take us for ice cream. We had big Sunday dinners together. And at one time, my family had 5 generations living in one house. They would take us to church and gently encourage us to get to know God. And the music. I would bathe in the music, whether it was hymns, gospel, jazz, blues. I was exposed to incredible music. As an example, when my mother died, my sister's mother-in-law, who we call Grandma, put her arm around me, patted me gently, and said, "Don't worry, I'm Mama now." I don't think I can explain to you what that did for me. Make no mistake, there were challenges, difficult and scary times and situations, but my family helped and supported each other. They were there in the cut. I had refuge in difficult times in a difficult world. Perfect? No, but loving? Yes. So what I absorbed is that love and kindness heal, support heals, being present for someone heals. We have an expression, We stand on the shoulders of the people who came before us. Because of the sacrifices that they made, their heroic efforts, their strides, because of their love, we exist and our lives are better, so much better than theirs. So we honor them by continuing their legacy, being accountable and responsible, by contributing, by making a difference. I am sorry about that. We know that it's our responsibility to leave things better than what we inherited. We hold them up, we include them. We know that they've transitioned, but we know that their spirits live on. So I have an ancestral altar with pictures and things that hold significance for my family. We gather and we teach the children about their ancestors, who they were, their character, their talents, their gifts, their accomplishments, things that we loved about them, learning from them. We do this and the children see themselves and what's possible. They have a compass. I only wish I had time to share with you some of my wonderful experience. You see, I'm not just an individual. I am an intrinsic element of the family. We share blood, history, DNA. We share talents and gifts, our time and energy. We support each other in our healing and in our journey in this life. Most important, we share love. My brothers and sisters' children and their children's children are my children, and I treat them that way. When there are issues, we come together with elder wisdom, spiritual prayer, physical, emotional, financial support, whatever is needed. I'm sure not very different than your families. It's not perfect. It's not easy. It is necessary. I want to share a quote with you from Desmond Tutu that I thought encapsulated this and is so powerful. Africans have a thing called Ubuntu. We believe that a person is a person through other persons, that my humanity is caught up, bound up inextricably with yours. When I dehumanize you, I dehumanize myself. The solitary human being is a contradiction in terms. Therefore, you seek to work for the common good because your humanity comes into its own in community, in belonging. And because of the lives that the ancestors lived, it is so much easier for me than for those who came before me. Regardless of the conditions or problems or issues, I practice being a stand for love. The science of mind teaching has taught me about non-judgment, about not making someone wrong, about seeing the God essence in other people. I cannot tell you how powerfully it has impacted my family. Yes, it can be a thin and precarious tightrope to walk. The juxtaposition between self-care and being there for family. But there's an inner knowing that we are not separate. What happens to you in some way impacts me. Yes, it takes a village. Ubuntu, I am because we are. I practice seeing the divine in my family and celebrating their life affirming characteristics, holding the high watch and knowing their truths. There is only one. It is the presence of God expressing through each one, through the family, every family, our communities, through the human family, the human race. Thank you. Let's take this into treatment. So in this moment, I just affirm the divine power and presence, the divine creative essence that I call God. And I know that this essence, this beingness is love, that it is the core of all life. It is the truth of all life. Love, connection, commitment. It is that divine creative essence that creates the beauty, the harmony, the wholeness, the peace, the joy. It expresses in and through and as each one of us, and I affirm that it is the truth of each one of us. I do not deny the challenges of the human family. I do not deny that there is much for us to learn and much for us to do, but I affirm that in back of all life, no matter the challenge, no matter the misunderstanding, the divine presence of God that is love is expressing. It is available to us at each and every moment. And so I affirm that love for each one that is, knowing that in this oneness, each one has the ability to express, to experience, to receive love, to receive understanding, to receive support, to receive healing, to receive empowerment, to be the truth of who each one is, a divine expression of God, perfect, whole, and complete in essence. I affirm that this light, this love, this power, this presence expresses continuously, and each one simply has to know this truth and turn to the presence within for its unfolding. And so I speak this affirmation for all that is love. Love expresses and love reigns supreme. Love heals. Love changes things. Love empowers. Love embraces and informs. Love gives. And so I simply release this word into the law, knowing it is the truth. It is God in action. Please close with me. And so it is.